I am Doomsvince, and this is day 100 of Spawn Year. How is your fortitude, Captain Logan? Are you rethinking my offer?
Today I have achieved an astounding landmark, 100 days of Spawn Year. 100 reviews, 100 Spawn items, and 100 days of being Doomsvince's increasingly agitated plaything. So much has happened to me emotionally since I arrived here. I almost don't feel like the same person. My priorities at home were so backwards. To think, the last thing I said to my wife before the coma was I couldn't spend New Year's Eve with her because I was too busy reviewing Spawn comics. That feels like a lifetime ago. Sometimes I really wonder how I'm going to get through another 9 months of this. I wish I knew yoga or some ancient meditation technique or something. I really have tried to make the best of it. I gave these comics the benefit of the doubt and hoped against hope that I'd be entertained enough to make it. And even going forward, I want to like these. It makes my life a whole lot easier. But Doomsvince chose Spawn for a reason, and not just because Al and I are both in our own personal hells. So I breathed a sigh of relief today when the television appeared again, at the prospect of something different, something to distract me from my admittedly violent frustration with the main comics. Then I had a moment of panic. What if this was another video game, another impossible contest I couldn't win, but with a prize I desperately wanted? And then, what if I did win and the prize turned out to be just another sadistic temptation? But then, what if the prize was getting my pen back? Hey, I can't believe I haven't tried that button on the tombstone again. I should have known. But then, with no Doomsvince head, no preamble, the New Line Cinema logo appeared on the screen, and I was pretty sure I knew what this was. The Spawn movie. It has intruded on a lot of the Spawn comics I've been reading lately. I felt its premise looming as strongly as Doomsvince's, and now I finally had the chance to see what all the retconning's about. It's been an eternity since I've had the privilege of kicking back and allowing myself to be whisked away into a fantastic escape via the magic of the movies. So even knowing it was Spawn, I couldn't help but be a little excited. Though there wasn't much kicking back since I'm still sitting on the ground. Both my feet took turns falling asleep, and my neck popped about a dozen times, and there wasn't any popcorn. Doomsvince did send a refreshments table, but it was nothing but popsicles and Mountain Dew. I doubt I would have liked this movie all that much if I hadn't just spent 3 months reading the source material. The plotting is really convoluted, the characters are all one-dimensional stereotypes, the villain is obnoxious and disgusting and takes up far too much screen time, the other villain is incredibly slow on the uptake, and frankly so is the hero, and what story there is just a loose framework to make giant special effects scenes happen. Visuals over story, stock characters, nonsensical storytelling. This all seems a little familiar. Oh yeah, this is Spawn! The very first thing I noticed is how condensed down everything is from the comics and how refreshing that is. A lot of the mythos in this movie is given in the book over 66 issues. Some of it is as recent as the one I just reviewed. That reveal that the alleys are a holy place is in the movie, because the movie has so much to get done in an hour and a half, which strikes me as awfully short. It can't afford to spend most of its time showing Spawn brooding and whining and dropping little crumbs of information when it darn well feels like it. So unlike the comic, it's mercifully straightforward. If there was more to the comic's mysterious nature, it would be a shame to lose all the amnesia stuff, but that was only ever there to stretch the narrative and be melodramatic, so linear is the way to go here. Like the comic, the movie tries everything it can to be for everyone, mixing all kinds of elements that just don't go together, and even more so because the slightly shorter and less violent PG-13 version was aimed heavily at kids, according to my laptop. Yeah, there was an attempt to market the premise of a hired gun returning from hell to families. So in the same film where you've got murder, revenge, fart jokes, people on fire, the devil worshippers, Marilyn Manson music, attempted genocide, there's also cute one-liners, cute kids, and Spawn's followed around the whole movie by his dog. Yeah, this is basically the story of a Spawn and his dog, and because it's marketed that way, the whole thing turns out to be less of a power struggle between heaven and hell for Al's soul, especially since heaven's side has zero representation beyond Cagliostro, who seems to be more of a rogue, and more of a typical tragic superhero origin story, where hell is just the necessary device to give the hero superpowers so he can stop the big threat to the whole planet. But while it's also obvious, predictable, and silly, it's also leaps and bounds more entertaining than the comic usually is, because it doesn't take itself too seriously. The movie is ridiculous, and it's perfectly comfortable with that. Weirdly, all of the Hollywooding done to make this movie more acceptable to general audience helps immensely. Everyone's forced to have clearer motivations because there isn't time for all that pointless posturing. So Wynn and Clown are in league to have Al murdered from the beginning. Clown is actually Spawn's guide instead of randomly killing mob bosses for no reason, and Cagliostro isn't even remotely cryptic. Malbolgia's plot to manipulate Al into giving up his soul is truncated into a simple revenge plot. Spawn promises to lead his army in exchange for seeing Wanda again. Then, through Clown, Bulgy tries to get Spawn to murder Wynn. Clown, pretending to help Wynn achieve world domination, convinces Wynn to surgically insert a device that'll set off his devastating virus bomb if he dies. The Heat-16, the same weapon Jessica Priest stole in that Curse of the Spawn arc, and that mission is actually referenced. Not surprising, since Alan McElroy wrote both. If Spawn kills Wynn, Bulgy officially owns his soul, for some reason, and he also really wants the Heat-16 to go off, but we're never told why, until Cog's closing narration when he refers to Malbolgia's plans to destroy the Earth. I thought he was grooming a leader for his army against heaven. Clown has Wynn under his thumb. Wynn not only has the Heat-16, but we know he's planning to use it and overthrow all the world's governments. He claims he'll only kill everyone who refuses to join him. That's one discriminating virus. So why the 5-year mission to get Al ready, send him back to Earth, and dupe him into setting off a bomb that's already gonna go off? Why does Bulgy need Spawn at all? Oh, to lead his army against heaven. Okay, I know I've said this before, but isn't Jessica a better candidate for that? Al has a conscience. She doesn't. She's totally evil and Spawn kills her. According to my official Spawn Year wiki, she was supposed to come back as a Spawn later in the film, but that idea was scrapped for time. That's why she's taken out so fast and then never referenced again. But then, does the movie even need her? In this version, Wynn is there when Al gets murdered. Why did McFarlane have to retcon Al's entire comic origin for this? Just have Wynn be the soul killer in this movie. Nice to see him do his own dirty work for once anyway. And then just don't reference Chapel in the comics again. Problem solved. And the way Al's murder is set up is poorly conceived. Clown tells Wynn he wants Al killed. Then right after that, Al conveniently starts wrestling with his conscience, discovering for the very first time ever that Wynn's had him killing innocent people. Al tries to get out of the A6, which gives Wynn an excuse to murder him, but he doesn't even need that because he's already planning to do this, and he murders people all the time. I think it might have been interesting if Al had maybe secretly known he was killing good people but ignored it, not wanting to believe it. Like, if no one tells me it's murder and I'm just following orders, it's not my fault. Then when he went to hell, he would seem to really deserve it, seem to have something to atone for, but also wouldn't seem totally soulless like Priest. Besides, you have to know your boss is a supervillain when his hench chick comes to the office dressed like that every day. Like in the comic, we're told how ruthless and stone cold Al is, but I don't see that on the screen. There's a quick flashback where Wanda says he comes home more dead inside after every mission, and Wynn calls him a borderline psychopath. I see a soldier who thinks he's fighting a covert war to protect America. He's maybe naive, but not the slightest bit out to lunch. We don't even see that he likes killing. He tries to jump ship at the first sign of moral ambiguity. The movie wants Spawn to be our superhero, and it's not willing to let him really be bad enough to be chosen by hell in the first place. What completely blindsided me is that the movie gets the most important thing right. Spawn is actually generally likable. It still takes a kid and a dog, but not being physically ripped apart the whole time. He does have that blind thirst for revenge against Wynn, and nearly kills him at the end, knowing he'll set off the virus, and he doesn't care because he thinks Wanda's dead. By the way, Clown should have just killed Wanda. That would have made a great deal more sense than pretending to be her. But that just seems out of character. Again, we're told he's capable of enormous evil, but he never previously seems to have that in him. This Spawn learns from his mistakes. He nearly kills Zack's father for beating him in the alley, then realizes how much worse he'd be making life for that kid, and he never does anything like that again. In the last scene, he sees how he'd be wrecking a family if he pursued Wanda, so he leaves Terry and Wanda alone. And he even has more personality than he does in the comic. He takes a little joy and pride in learning about his powers, and he's not embracing the evil, just enjoying what little there is to enjoy about his awful new existence. I like it when he calls Cog Yoda, and while he's too easily manipulated by Clown, and so is Winn, Clown's not exactly subtle about his double-cross, his revenge motive at least keeps him proactive. He has to learn to turn his energies to something more productive by the end. Unfortunately, we'd need another movie to see just what that would be, but at least he doesn't mope around in an alley all movie and fight random monsters that show up. I like that he only uses guns when he couldn't possibly know what his powers are, and that once he learns, he puts the guns away. He's still too powerful. We're told he'll die if he drains his powers or if his head gets cut off, but when Clown dies at the end, he just goes back to hell, so we don't really know what the stakes are. If he went back to hell, couldn't he just get sent right back? And he electrocutes Bulgy's entire army to death at the end without dying. How lazy is that in your third act? Bulgy, bring me his head. Spawn, well, you kinda gave me enough power to do anything I feel like, so that's not gonna work. We get nothing but the most basic and superficial relationship background for Al and Wanda. I'll love you forever. You'll never lose me. So it's hard to appreciate Al's returning from hell for her. So then, just like the comic, Clown says very little that makes me laugh, but he's right off the page. John Leguizamo really sells it, and he's obviously having a good time. In fact, the whole cast is enjoying the melodramatic, silly material, and it's kind of fun. Some of the effects don't hold up well, particularly the bad color matching of Violator and Hell toward the end, but I love the landscape of Hell itself. The costume looks believable, and the CG cape, when we do see it, is gigantic and really pretty. The comics are stretching to an absurd degree, a premise that doesn't feel designed for an ongoing comic with no foreseeable end. In the film, Cog says Al's most important test is giving up on his old life and moving on. He hasn't done that in 4 years of continuity. He does it here in an hour and a half, and I like him better. I have to admit that as contrived and convoluted as it was, it's nothing compared to the source material, and I actually enjoyed myself. Though I doubt I'll ever feel the need to sit down and... What's going on? Doomsvince? Wait, I have to watch it again? Wait, how many times?